Hello, and welcome to Semantic Reactions, the official podcast of the Institute of General Semantics. My name is Ben Houck, and I'm pleased to be able to introduce the sixth episode in our ongoing series. For our February podcast of 2023, IGS President Lance Straight interviews the poet, performer, and recording artist Stephen Roxborough. Their discussion focuses on the recent release of Roxborough's new album, entitled Poetic Dystopia, available on CD and via digital download. Poetic Dystopia features Roxborough's spoken word poetry with musical accompaniment by Carl Blau, and our podcast includes several tracks from that album for your listening pleasure.
Hello, this is Lance Straight, and I'm very happy to be here with Stephen Roxborough to talk poetry. Now, Stephen has traveled the world in search of poetry and art, and he's also worked as a copywriter and creative director, navigating an award-winning career in advertising in Las Vegas and Toronto. And Rox, as he's known to his friends, is it okay if I refer to you as Rox? Rox?
Certainly.
Okay. So we're on the Rox here, and Rox has co-edited Radiant Dance of Being, a poetic portrait of Bill Bissett. He's also the author of several books of poetry. I Feel Your Donut Pain, The DNA of NHL, Ego to Earth School, Open Heart Sutra Surgery, and this wonderful Perpetual Beautiful. He's also a photographer and is often in the field capturing and creating visions for the visionary in everyone. And most recently, he has been the collaborator on a CD, an album, as we used to say, called Poetica Dystopia. And I'm really glad to be able to welcome Rox here today so we can talk about this new publication, this new issuance, and maybe even listen to a few cuts off of the CD. So Rox, welcome to Semantic Reactions.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you. And of course, poetry is very much about language and the word. And the founder of General Semantics, Alfred Korzybski, was certainly appreciative of poetry and recognized that it could communicate and express concepts that cannot be expressed through other means. Another prominent early general semantics scholar, S.I. Hayakawa, was a professor of English and acknowledged the power of poetry. Also noted that advertising, I think you'll be interested to know, was perhaps the modern source of much poetic language, certainly in the more traditional style. But you have not really done advertisements for yourself, to quote another literary figure, but instead have taken on the topic of dystopia. Can you perhaps tell us a bit about how you came to create a CD, an album? It's certainly understandable. For our listeners, Rox is also a very gifted performance poet, as well as a, shall we say, writerly poet. But this is something new, I take it, for you, or have you done this before?
Well, actually, my first venture into poetry was a CD, and that was over 20 years ago. And I put that together in Las Vegas under I was using by that time the moniker Rox Word. And so I thought, well, 20 years has passed. It's about time I did. And it actually came about it was a convergence of three events. There was my concern for the direction of our society and my frustration with the pandemic lockdown, and my good fortune to collaborate with a multi-talented musician, Carl Blau.
So tell me a bit about that collaboration, because most folks are somewhat familiar, at least, with the process of songwriting, but this is a bit different, right?
Yeah, it is quite a bit different. What my process or our process was is that I would record the poem and send it across the country, because I'm in the Northwest, send it to Philadelphia, where Carl now lives, and we'd had discuss it, and I'd send him the words, and we'd discuss the what kind of a sound we want, what kind of an emotive kind of space we wanted to create. And then he would go away and into his little workshop and work his magic and send me a rough back. And then we discuss it again. And we do this sometimes 3 or 4 times back and forth. But I have to say that most of the time, Carl hit it, I thought, really bang on. And he also elevated my words many times in a way that surprised me. And it's my favorite part of the collaboration is when he would send me something that I was so tickled with. I couldn't even believe he could come up with that.
Could you tell us a bit about Carl, because we don't have him here, so it'd be good to know a bit about his background. And let me just note that the name is Carl K with a K, Blau, Blau.
That's right. And he has been an indie musician for about 20 years. He's created over right around 40 albums. He's a bit of an indie legend in the Northwest and in other places as well. He's had some, I think, some pretty successful musical adventures. And he's been to Europe. I don't know how many times. He's toured with a lot of different musicians as a bass player. But he plays on this CD. He played over 20 instruments, and he's just. I would urge anybody to look up his music. He's very talented. He grew up in the Northwest around Anacortes area. And that's where I met him, in Anacortes, when I lived there. And
where is that?
Anacortes, Washington. That's
okay.
about 150 miles north of Seattle, on the Puget Sound. They call it the gateway to the San Juan Islands. Some people know the San Juan Islands. It is an island, but you can drive to it. And then you get the ferry in Anacortes to the San Juans or Victoria. And so it's an interesting place. It's a very beautiful place as well. We met there, and I just kept coming to his concerts and enjoying him and his music. And eventually I just kind of said, hey, would you be interested in a collaboration? And we collaborated on a few things. I sent him a few poems and he turned them into songs. And then during the lockdown, I said, and I knew he wasn't touring because nobody was touring. I said, would you have some time for this project? And lo and behold, he did. And we got going on it.
Well, I can see on the credits in the booklet that comes with your CD, he's got quite a few. Let me read them. Yamaha DJX, Korg M1 Synth, Roland SP404, Casio PT80, Nomad Duet Organ, Hammond Organ, Spinet Piano, Nylon String Guitar, electric bass, drum set, snare drum, cymbal, finger snaps, rain stick, penny whistle, ocarina, harmonica, melodica, mouth horn, Gregorian chant, cassette answering machine tape, child's piano, soundscapes, and production.
Yeah, and mixing, which we kind of did together, but obviously he has the tools. And he also has a little studio in his garage in the backyard of his home in Germantown, Philadelphia. So that was convenient as well. And he is a wizard. He made some magic, I think.
And certainly, while we're going through the credits, yours are a bit more modest: words, vocals, snoring, and direction.
Snoring, yeah. Yeah, I got some recordings of me snoring. I still find it hard to believe that's me, but hey, it probably is. I don't know where any other place they could come from.
How did that come to be then?
Well, I was asleep and I got recordings. A friend of mine said, "Hey, I gotta, you snore a lot." I go, "No, I didn't. I'm not aware of it. I'm sleeping." And then there they are. There's the snoring. Pretty crazy.
And you kept those.
Well, I asked for them
Sure.
in files, and I sent them on to Carl, and I said, "Can you put some snoring here on this intro and this outro?" Because essentially, the one of the ideas of the album is that when we descend into dystopia, we're sleepwalking through dystopia, and then we come out of dystopia at the end of the CD, and there's a kind of a ray of light and awareness, and all the portals are open. So that's the kind of the concept of the album.
I see. Well, how about if we play the opening track and we can get a sense of what that sounds like?
Excellent.
The wasteland of pillars and columns, of domes and dunes and cartoons, of documents and monuments, of power and fear, cowards and towers, of rose gardens and embryo, of intrigue and incest, of trying to justify the past while skating on the future of founding fathers and slave owners, and lost tongues of mothers of our original fathers, of forgotten history and making history, and ignored history and rewriting history, of Supreme Courts and supreme gestures, of lost statesmen and suffragettes, and all those one neglects, of scandals and burglars, of backrooms and trapdoors, political spin and cynical pivot, of under the table and over the counter, of corruption and gumption, and theocracy and dishonesty. The wasteland of pillars and columns, domes and tombs and cartoons, of documents and monuments, of power and fear, cowards and towers, forgotten history and making history, and ignored history and rewriting history, of government and betterment, and putting on a happy arms race, of government and betterment, and putting on a happy arms race.
So that was Welcome to Dystopia. And that brings up the question, although it may seem obvious in some ways, but why dystopia?
Oh my goodness. Well, if I had to distill it to one particular character, I think it would be Donald Trump, and it's a kind of a combination of Orwell and what he taught us, and the presidency of Donald Trump and what he taught us. It just not only that, but there's also the technology. There's the proliferation of billionaires. There's the haves and have-nots. I mean, it kind of goes on and on.
Yeah.
So I would say, why not dystopia?
Well, sure. The idea of dystopia is, of course, very popular in a lot of fiction.
True.
And including 1984 and Brave New World, and famously those two were compared, including by Huxley, where Huxley suggested that Brave New World was the better fit for where we were headed after reading 1984. But 1984 kind of spoke a lot to the kind of repressiveness of the communist bloc, more so. And Neil Postman also compared the two and suggested Brave New World was the better fit for life under television, so to
Right.
speak.
Yeah.
And we have so many, it's such a popular kind of narrative, especially that young adult fiction, I mean, Hunger Games and all of that. But you're really referring to, are you saying that we are actually in dystopia? And this wouldn't be the first time. And in fact, when the term was first used, it goes back to the 19th century, and John Stuart Mill used it in a speech to Parliament in reference to policy about Ireland. So it does have certainly a history, not just in fiction. So you're referring to contemporary culture now as being a dystopia. We're living in dystopia right now.
Exactly. I unfortunately forgot, but I'll mention it now. Are climate woes and the ever increasing probability that we're going to be in for a big awakening.
Yeah. But I'm just thinking about that, about dystopia, because it's become so prevalent that I've noticed students in my classes starting to refer to future scenarios as dystopia, even when they don't fit that mode, even they're just about the future. They've come to equate dystopia with the future. But so much of our thinking about the future tends to be negative. There are rare moments where we envision a positive future for us. So we are welcome to dystopia is sort of welcome to where we are right now.
Exactly. And I don't know if this is relevant, but in a way it is. I was always interested in what Anthony Burgess said about Orwell's 1984, and he told a story that Orwell wanted to call it 1948, but his publisher said, no, you can't do that. That will disturb people too much. And so they chose 1984. So, and I think in an interesting way, he was, not only did he foresee a lot of manipulations of language that we're experiencing now, but he saw it all in his own time as well.
Absolutely. And of course, he reversed 48 into 84 to get to that year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and again, especially in Nazi Germany and in the Soviet Union, there was a lot of manipulation of language, and including issuing new dictionaries and revising language. And the Nazis were very big on that, adapting words that were used for like cattle breeding to refer to human beings. So that, that becomes very revealing. Absolutely.
And saying a falsehood often enough, it becomes the truth.
Well, yeah, the big lie.
The big lie.
So here we are in dystopia. Is poetry the way to call that out?
Well, it's one way. It might not be the most effective way or direct way, but it's the way I communicate. And it's not the only, I'm not a dystopian poet. I just had to say something. I felt I had to, it was just bubbling up inside me. And that's the way this particular project came out.
Right.
It was also a part, most of these poems, all but two of these poems, came from a collection that I think you're familiar with, I Feel Your Donut Pain.
Right.
So, and which was, I wanted that to come out before the 2020 election, which it did. So this is kind of the residuals of that, kind of a distillation of that book.
Yes, I noted that, and there are two original pieces, or two pieces that weren't in I Feel Your Donut Pain.
That's correct. They're in another collection that is yet to be published about impermanence.
About what? I'm sorry.
Impermanence.
Ah,
Kind of death and decay, and that aspect of the human condition.
and now you're living in the state of Washington, but you were originally from further north.
I was born in Albany, New York,
Ah,
and but when I was 2 months old, I moved with my parents to Cali, Colombia, and then moved a lot of different places. My father's Canadian, so I have a dual citizenship. So I have gone back and forth across the border, lived in Vancouver and Toronto. And now I'm on Whidbey Island in Washington State.
and because I did think of you. I mean, I guess I'd been introduced to you as a Canadian poet, but you would kind of more generally be a North American.
I would say, yeah, North American. I like that. Or a poet of the world. It really doesn't matter. But I think it's interesting how we fall into those classifications purely by chance. I'm an American poet, I'm a Canadian poet, I'm a Mexican poet. And there is some truth to that, of course. There are people that, like, you wouldn't think that Walt Whitman was anything but an American poet.
Right.
So, yeah. And this is actually, these subjects of this dystopia are North American, although many of them have an American slant to them. I find that some of the same problems exist in Canada as well, and Mexico as well. Yeah.
Yeah, Mexico's a little further along in some ways at this time. Yeah. How about you were in Colombia too?
Yes. Well, I lived there. I was very young, but they say the first couple of years of your life are very influential, and I guess I gotta believe that. My parents met in Ecuador, and then they had a courtship and got married, and then my father went to Dartmouth, and later to Harvard, and then he went back to South America. Went back to Colombia.
So Colombia, Ecuador, that makes you an Andean poet as well.
An Andean, okay, I'll take that.
But this does illustrate another point in general semantics about how problematic identity is.
Yeah, without question. Yeah, especially in this global village that we have.
But I guess the Canadian connection also comes up because of your association with Bill Bissett.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's true. I met Bill in Kimberley, British Columbia, and a good friend of mine, Jeff Pugh, introduced me, and we both fell in love with everything Bill, and that's when we decided, hey, we always started writing poetry about Bill. We wondered if anybody else had, and that's when we came up with the idea for an anthology of poetry about Bill.
Were you also familiar with Leonard Cohen, who's obviously the very prominent Canadian poet and singer-songwriter?
Totally. I was just mentioning this the other day to a friend of mine. When I was in grade 10 English in Vancouver, my English teacher played the song Suzanne for us and passed out the lyrics, and I was hooked. So yes, Lenny, as Bill calls him, is a huge influence.
And yet, to get back to the American identity, I thought the cut on the album Upgraded Colossus, which of course is a takeoff on Emma Lazarus, was particularly American, both in hearkening back to this poem that's immortalized on the Statue of Liberty, but also suggested to me a bit of Allen Ginsberg.
Yeah, that's great. I would admit to that. Definitely influenced by Ginsberg and Emma, definitely.
Well, should we take a listen to that one then?
Oh, I'd love to. Thanks.
Give me your wired and screen addicted to your ice cream and meme afflicted. Give me your lovelorn, soft porn, blue pill, credit card bill, run of the mill, lonely heart outcast redneck weapons expert. Give me your befuddled masses from here to Parnassus. Give me your poor, your raconteur, your amour with illusions of grandeur. Give me your racist, your homophobe, your feeble sheeple zombie, and your born-again ex-smoker, self-righteous, cross-dressing Nazi. Give me your obese, your obtuse, your confused, your bipolar soldier, your unholy roller. You're abused and refused, and your dumbed-down, small-town, renowned political clown. Give me your old, broken cowboys and past their prime playboys. Give me your teenage street corner medicine men and your two-faced corporate ladder climbers. Give me your washed-up athletes and your brainwashed Wall Street elite. Give me your heartless and your homeless. Give me your helpless, your idiots, your savants, your servants and masters of unspeakable acts. Give me your wannabes, your rabies, your rabbis, your thalidomide babies, your molesters, your protesters, your drunks and monks, your seekers, your preachers, your teachers and priests. Give me your anorexics, your dyslexics, your geeks and freaks and your walking antiques. Give me your bloated white privilege and your inkjet black activist. Give me your brown bag brownie, your yellow fever yellow, your refugee red. Give me your screaming magenta, your hot pink and your half dead. Give me your blue blood and greenbacks, your bureaucrat gray and Rita Hayworth ginger, your glam and glitter, your gold and silver. Give me your sun-kissed orange and your smoker's lung ochre. Give me your imperfect purple and your perfectly mediocre. Give me your rainbow boho hobo. Give me everything to go. Give me the world's biggest melting pot. Give me all the colors in your crayon box. Give me a taste of freedom and a shot of liberty. Give me a chaser, a memory eraser. And deliver me with a strong punch of real history. Give me the whole fucking lot. Forgive my tempest temper. You see, I'm America, the greedy side. So God bless you all. But goddamn, gimme. Give me everything you got. Give me everything you got.
So, is there anything you could tell us about the process that led to that? I know poets often don't like to talk about that, but
I don't. Well, it's a little bit of a list poem there,
yeah.
and obviously, I wanted to have fun with words, and I wanted to be inclusive, and I wanted to. I wanted to use like a rainbow effect, all the colors in their crayon box. So I played around with colors, and I more or less, it's called the upgraded colossus because I was expanding on the Lazarus poem. But anything more, I don't know.
Okay.
But in terms of the process of the collaboration with Carl, he just turned it into some kind of a Dada-esque, polka effect that just really made me smile. And even though it's a serious look at the multitudes that make up not only us as individuals, but us as a collective, I felt that was really amazing how he did that, how he created that effect. And then at the end, I thought there might be some kind of nod to America in some way. I said, I don't think you need to redo the Hendrix Star Spangled Banner, but maybe there's something that's in public domain that you could play around with. And obviously he came up with America the Beautiful, which is another wonderful thing that I think, and I just love the way that piece came together.
Yeah, it really stands out, and the humorous quality also makes me think a little bit of the Firesign Theater in
Huh.
terms of comedy recording.
Wow. Well, thank you. That's a huge compliment for me. And a good friend of mine is David Osman. So one of the Firesign guys, and he's a fabulous person. He lives on Whidbey Island as well.
Would you say that they were an influence on you as well?
Well, I wouldn't say they were a conscious influence on me, but I obviously they were an influence on me because when I was in high school, they were doing their thing, and I was listening intently on headphones and enjoying that type of lunacy, I suppose, controlled lunacy. They were also known as the Beatles of comedy. So if you haven't heard of them, that could give you a reference. There were four of them, and they were all really talented. Two remain, and those two that remain are talented. So, yeah.
Really amazing sound recordings that went beyond anything, the typical kind of comedy album where when you've heard a joke, you've heard the routine, there's not much interest in hearing it again because you already know the punchline.
Mhm.
But with Firesign Theater, it was more like music or poetry, really.
Yeah.
Listen to it over and over again.
Theater of the mind is kind of the way I look at it. And in this case, I think with Upgraded Colossus, that's an astute observation, because I think that there's a lot of a theater of the mind in this particular poem.
Well, since we're talking about that, what other influences would you point to, that you are aware of, or that kind of molded your poetic sensibility?
My other 10th grade influence from this wonderful English teacher played me for the first time Dylan Thomas's Child's Christmas in Wales. And that set me off on I had no idea that not only can you do those things with language, but with sound. That was a big influence. I think the Romantic poets, especially Lord Byron, were an influence in grade 11 English. And then in university, I was smitten by Whitman, Emerson, Poe, and Dickinson. So I would say those are my major influences until I heard so much about Kerouac. You gotta read Kerouac. So when I read Kerouac, he unleashed a kind of a stream of consciousness, very fluid and musical way of writing for me. So that helped me tap in, I think, to the field of poetry.
Is there a cut on the album that is say your favorite, or one of your favorites? I know you love them all, but
yeah, they're all our children. Let's see. Oh, well, I would like to hear right now, perhaps let's see, Stupor to Stupor.
Yeah, I really like that one too. Very catchy. After listening to the album on the drive into work one day, that one kept running through my head. So why don't we take a listen to that?
Excellent. Thank you.
Stupor, stupor, dust, dust. Stupor to stupor, dust, dust. The perfection of our professions. How they trained us to sleepwalk through the body-snatching effect of education, athletics, employment, indoctrination, marriage, children, systems, the zen of mind-numbing times 10. Stupor to stupor, dust, dust. Stupor to stupor, dust, dust. We got less joy for more toy. We got more hives and less rides. We got less money for more money. We got more yoga, less mojo. They made sure we were disenfranchised, disengaged, scattered, divided, conquered disarray. We used to believe we could change the world, give peace a fighting chance, and not fall into the same grinding machine as our parents. But the clockwork world made us alive. The minute hand held us in our seats, day after month after year. We got fed the same lie enough times. The digital watch looked like a victory. We traded one stupor for another. Tricycle for bicycle, for car, for truck, for bus, for plane, for train, for jet, for submarine, and dreams of a rocket ship to Mars. Stupor after stupor after stupor until it was too late. And we realized all stupors breathe loneliness, waiting in our cages to die. Stupor to stupor and dust to dust. Stupor to stupor and dust to dust. Not as sad as it sounds, because stupor takes the edge off, convinces you to feel better and begin to believe your ordinary contribution might help. Someone write a decent obituary, as if the dull circular routine of mundane existence really made a difference. Stupor to stupor, dust to dust. Stupor to stupor, dust to dust. The perfection of our perpetual stupor. How they trained us to sleepwalk through the zen of mind-numbing times 10. The zen of mind-numbing times 10. Stupor to stupor, dust, stupor to dust.
That is very powerful.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really, really amazing pairing the music with the words, how they elevate each other, and kind of Carl was great at working with that. And his education background was as a sound engineer, so he knows exactly how to do that. Which I encourage all poets to try to elevate their poetry with that kind of effect, because it doesn't really change the words or the meaning, but it just adds a heightened sense of, for me, a satisfaction.
Yeah. Yeah. And particularly like it sounds like a clock chiming,
Hmm.
and that fits in. I actually really like the lines, that particularly, I mean, I like the whole thing, but the, but the clockwork world ate us alive. The minute hand held us in our seats day after month after year. We got fed the same lie enough times. A digital watch looked like a victory. That cracks me up, actually.
Thank you.
Uh, so it's just the newest consumer item feels
Yeah,
like this is progress, and this is what makes life worth living.
that's so, yeah, that's exactly what I was saying there. But I was also drawing upon my experience on Let's Make a Deal with Monty Hall.
No.
Yeah. There was a kind of an interesting, well, everything with that show was fascinating to me because I was on it and I was offered the money machine or what was behind the curtain. And I looked to my wife at the time and she wanted a car. So she took the curtain. But behind the curtain was a ton of bricks. And that wasn't the car she was looking for. So instead of a ton of bricks, which I really didn't want, they gave us 2 digital watches, which broke after about 6 months. So they were brand new at the time. This was 1976, and it
Right.
was one of those things digital. Nobody had a digital watch. Well, a few people did, and so that's my personal reference to that. But I imagine there's also another aspect of the digital watch is it tells you exactly what time it is now, no past or no future. And I've often thought that was another way of controlling us.
That's a great point, and I often use that as an illustration of the difference between digital and analog,
Hmm.
because the analog clock face gives you all the times at once.
Yes.
And of course, it does change our language, because when you look at the digital readout, I mean, apart from not really having that skill of telling time, but it also results in people never saying like quarter of or quarter to. They only say,
That's right.
say whatever, 7:45.
Yeah.
And of course it gets people to provide a precision that nobody ever needs, like it's 7:47. No, it's 7:48. Like that makes a difference, most of the time. Of course it doesn't.
So true. Yeah.
So you're saying we're all in a stupor all the time?
Well, not all of us, but I think the vast majority of us, yes.
And to take the edge off.
Whatever, choose your poison. Now there are new poisons all the time.
And of course there's this reference to ashes, dust to dust. So it's also a kind of death that you're referencing.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, after a certain point where we get to a certain age and we are dying, literally we're dying. And it's up to us to make the choices of our lives. What do we want to do with our life? And maybe I've chosen a different path because poetry is an obscure diversion, but it's one that I have a great relationship with.
Well, and certainly much accomplished as well.
Well, thank you.
I found interesting, it's relatively short, but the poem Both.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if we could play that one.
Oh, yeah, please, by all means. Yeah.
The system is both problem and solution. The solution is both answer. Question is both problem and answer. The answer is both system and problem. Problem is both answer and system. The system is both problem and solution. The problem is both answer and system. The answer is both system and problem. The question is both problem and answer. And the solution is both answer, both question and question. The system is both problem and solution. The system is both problem and solution.
Very interesting recording technique on that.
Well, thank you. That was one of those serendipitous mistakes that I heard. And when I was downloading it, my recording, and I went, geez, I like the way that overlaps. So I just recorded it twice and then overlapped them and sent it on to Carl, and he put the atmosphere on it. Very simple, but effective, I think, because there are two readings of the same poem. That's the both, and the fact that the solution sometimes creates a problem, and the problem is sometimes affected by the solution. It's a little bit of a loop we catch ourselves in.
And it's very revealing in general semantics. One key point is that we should be certainly aware and cautious about what Korzybski called the two-valued orientation, which is either or thinking, right? In that sense, either you're part of the problem, part of the solution, or part of this problem, but in fact, you're both at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah, that's good example. Really good example.
Yeah, well, it really speaks to that. And there's also the idea in media ecology that when it comes to technology is supposed to solve our problem, a particular problem, but then it creates a new problem, and which requires more technology to solve that problem, and so on, so that technology actually expands for that reason.
Yeah, exactly. And then we have the ecological solutions that create other problems. Species being introduced unwittingly into environments, and they become dominant. The one that comes to mind right now is the Burmese python in the Everglades. So that, I mean, they don't have a predator right now except for man. And it could be a disaster to the ecology there.
And, one of the scary things is that, all of these plans to deal with climate change, are talking about, say, putting particles up into the atmosphere to block out the sun, which inevitably will create more problems, and possibly more severe problems than the ones we're already experiencing.
Right. Now I have a friend who's a Haida, and he's a fourth generation carver and storyteller. Got most of his stories from his grandmother. He was raised by his grandmother. So these are really amazing stories. And the gist of most of the ecological stories basically point to getting back to our original nature, which would be more homeostasis influenced than, we're humans like to do things, and sometimes doing things is the worst possible thing.
Well, and certainly that idea of homeostasis, balance, it also relates to Gregory Bateson's view and about ecology and just generally the need to not do things and to put brakes on what we're doing rather than just go full speed ahead. Yeah.
Or like you said, zigzagging this way and that way, and we really become a pinball in our own in a disastrous kind of soup.
Well, and you mentioned climate as part of the one major element of our current dystopia. Is there a cut on here that particularly speaks to that? I believe new climate models would be the one you're looking for. Shall we listen to that one?
Certainly. Let's do that.
Interrupt
this program to bring you a special bulletin. The new climate models are hotter than ever this season. Headlines rising, intensifying storm patterns, wind-swept waves, and tidal highs. While melting freshwater ice caps were tilted on active, slow current circulation. Warm, muted colors of smoke and ash will be the rage. Although some eastern seaboard models favor an eventual cooling trend, sporting brightly colored turbo down jackets do herald the beginning of greater seasonal extremes. Whatever changes in weather, brace yourself for complex consequences and make sure you're smartly garbed in comfort and style.
So that's a bit of a parody too.
Yes, exactly. Maybe a little bit of more fire sign theater influence as well.
Right. And so a bit of a kind of news broadcaster and also kind of fashion reference.
Yeah, kind of a combination. Yeah. Yeah. It's getting serious, I think, because every summer we get a little bit more smoke from the fires. And when you can't drink the water or breathe the air, things are not going to be good for people or many other
Living things.
living things.
Most certainly, yeah. So are you a pessimist?
No, I'm not. Interestingly enough, I'm not a pessimist. I do believe that we could turn this ship around, but it's going to take a while. That's the an overnight solution I don't see. But I'm definitely not a pessimist. There's something in my DNA that doesn't allow me to lose hope, even though I struggle with it. I don't lose hope.
And your feelings about your fellow human beings then, because there is quite a lot of criticism here.
Yeah. Well, not all people are bad. Not all people are good.
Fair enough. Well, I mean, you mentioned that this was kind of a product of the Trump era.
Right.
Are you feeling more comfortable now, feeling less dystopian in the current moment, or is it just a kinder, gentler dystopia that we're in now?
Kinder. That's funny. I would have to say that there are elements that have improved, but then we have the new guard coming up. George Santos comes to mind. Like that's a Marjorie Taylor Greene. Who knows about Kevin McCarthy? There are things that have improved and will continue to improve. And then there are things that it seems like the divide is getting greater. The capitalistic, our capitalistic ways seem to be getting the best of us in so many ways. And I just don't see that as being, let me put it this way. I would love to see more compassion for others.
Given where you live, I understand that Washington, Oregon, and British Columbia, I mean, they're certainly a region, but there also was some talk about becoming their own like kind of independent entity. Was it Cascadia? I think.
Cascadia, yeah, I think that includes Alaska as well. And that is the region, I guess. The geographical region is Cascadia, but I don't think that. First of all, I would hate to see British Columbia get swallowed up in any way, shape, or form by the United States. And I don't think very many Canadians would like that either. Canada is a proud and great country, and they are usually on the side of good. And I'm not saying the U.S. isn't, but I just think that there's an edge to the United States right now. The gunplay is off the charts. The mass shootings, when all you have to do is just, I don't even look at that much anymore. We've been so desensitized to it, it frightens me. But the idea of the whole West Coast, and that would have to include, in my opinion, California, that's the only possible economic union that could break away from the United States. I don't see Texas or Florida, or, the deep South in Texas. Give me a break.
I'm wondering then, when we going back to the CD, it is a kind of journey in a way, and you sort of described it that way, because again, it starts with Welcome to Dystopia. How does it move as, as a journey or as a trip through, I guess, a kind of North American dystopia? Where do you wind up?
Well, you wind up with of transcending it all, I think. I think that you come to an understanding that maybe this isn't where you want to be. This is a collective understanding that it's not a relationship that is sustainable. And then you transcend. That's when the last track is, after you leave, is All Portals Open. But along the way, there's some pretty, it is about change. It's about impermanence. It's about greed. It's about there's a lot of denial. The style of denial is another, I think, important message. Then there's, follow the money. That's a political kind of a refrain that we hear all the time. We're still following the money. And then how governments use fear to keep us in line. There's that, putting on the fear. There's a lot of detours and avenues and alleyways that I go down, but I like to think that I end on a positive note.
Well, should we listen to that ending then?
Yeah, go ahead, please. Let's do that.
So what were you thinking of as far as all portals open?
Well, I think I was thinking about George Harrison when he said, "It's so far out, the way out is in," and this is how we're going to have to change this. Is all take a really good hard look at ourselves, go inside ourselves, change ourselves, and just be better, just do
Mhm.
better, and not get caught up in the shiny toys and the making more money at any cost, because the cost is now catching up with us. It's real, and you can be in denial, but good luck with that.
So it's being open to the world.
Being open to the world, being and the world be I think when you're open to the world, you go inside, you expand, and then you come out, and the world is more open to you.
That's an awareness of what's going on around you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And, again, in general semantics, we have this acronym WIGO, just WIGO, for what is going on. That is the primary question, is to
Mm.
ask that. So to be open to what is going on.
Excellent. I like that.
I did get a feeling of a bit of fireside theater also from that one. Just the intonation of it struck me as having some of that quality.
Interesting. Hopefully in a positive way.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Excellent. I just would like to note that guitar solo at the end that Carl plays is one of my favorite parts of the whole album. I just love that he uses the feedback, and it kind of snakes through and leads us out to the portals.
It is lovely, and really, and he did a magnificent job throughout, as far as creating music to go with the poetry. It's certainly more challenging, I would imagine, than just writing a song to go with a set of lyrics.
Well, I wouldn't exactly know, but I think it could be. I think one of speaking about openness, one of the great things about creative people like Carl is how open he is to going in different directions. And if you ever listen to his music, which I urge everyone to, you'll find that he has a great variety of sound and meaning in his work, which I admire and have admired for a long time. So I feel really fortunate to have been given the opportunity to collaborate with a master like Carl.
And now, if folks are interested in purchasing this CD or downloading the tracks, as so many do nowadays, this is available via Bandcamp.
Yes, it is. Bandcamp right now, iTunes. You can listen to it on YouTube. One of these days it's going to be on Spotify. I've been waiting for that, but it hasn't happened yet. So yeah, it's really nice to get the CD, because not only because I got about a couple hundred of them, but also because it comes with a lyric booklet or a poem booklet, a 16-page booklet, and you can follow along, or you can read it separately, however you'd like to do. I'm very pleased with that. That design was done by my good friend, art director Milo Duffin, who lives in Las Vegas. I've worked with him on many projects, book covers, and I think on one of your book covers, as a matter of fact, Lance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Thunder at Darwin Station.
That's it, Thunder at Darwin Station.
Yeah.
So he's really good. I enjoy working with him as well. So I also could plug Megan Brame, who did the illustration, cover illustration which kind of harkens back to a little Crimson-esque, King Crimson-esque.
I was just going to say that, Court of the Crimson King.
That's it. Yeah, yeah. One day I walked in. She's a friend of my son, and she was drawing on the table, and not literally on the table, but on a piece of paper on the table. And she had come up with this design. I said, "Oh, what's that for?" She said, "Nothing." And so I said, "Well, I'd like it for something." And there it is. And it was designed to be multiplied. If you took 4 of those, you would see how they would line up with each other. It's pretty ingenious kind of. It was actually an assignment my son had in one of his design classes, and she wasn't in the design class, but she took it up, and this is what she came up with.
So you would recommend that people should buy 4 copies rather than just one?
Well, if they know 4 people, of course. But they're pretty reasonably priced. I mean, I'm not making any money off of these, but I just want to put it out because I think people might enjoy something a little bit different.
Well, I could certainly attest to that and recommend it. Again, the title of the album is Poetica Dystopia, and the artist is Stephen Roxborough and Carl Blau. Roxborough, Roxbough, Blau, Blau. Since we're audio only, sometimes you got to spell things out. And Rox, is there anything you want to leave us with as far as what we've been talking about?
I just want to say what a pleasure it was to talk to you today, and also how every time I hear you talk about general semantics, it makes me want to dive in deeper. I'm just fascinated by it, and thank you for giving me that inspiration.
Well, you're quite welcome, and there'll certainly be plenty of opportunities for deeper dives in the future.
Very good. I enjoy that. Yeah. Thanks again.
Thank you, Rox. Thank you to our guest, Stephen Roxborough, and have a great day.
You've been listening to our February 2023 episode of Semantic Reactions, featuring an interview with Stephen Roxborough. If you like what you've heard, or even if you haven't, please consider becoming a member of the Institute of General Semantics, if you're not one already. In addition to supporting our efforts, IGS members receive an annual subscription to our journal, etc., a review of general semantics, access to our online and in-person events, lectures, and seminars, and discounts on the books and audiovisual materials that we sell. Regular membership is only $50 and half off for students. Your membership and any additional donations you care to make will help to support our offerings and activities as we work to bring a measure of sanity to the world. The Institute of General Semantics is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to research and education on a wide range of topics. They include language and symbols, meaning and perception, communication and representation, media and technology, science and epistemology, creativity, and critical thinking. We are dedicated to making the world a better place through practical strategies for improving our semantic environment, individually and collectively. For more information about the Institute and our activities, and to become a member and supporter of our work, please visit our website at generalsemantics.org. That's generalsemantics, one word, .org. And this brings to a close our 6th episode of Semantic Reactions, the official podcast of the Institute of General Semantics. This is Ben Houck, signing off, saying, we hope you'll join us next time, and until then, just remember the simple fact that the map is not the territory.